We're all familiar with the three whats: what it is, what it can do for me, and what does it cost. Tyler Rickenaugh, Country Financial, can help you find the answers with insurance coverage to help protect what's most important to you, all at a price you can afford. So while you're juggling work and kids while trying to keep an eye on your financial future, Tyler Rickenaugh, Country Financial, will make sure they are the first ones there when you need them most.
The kids are back to school, and your schedule is busier than ever. From daycare pickup, doctor's appointments, sports, and college tuition, a parent's signature is a powerful thing. Have you ever stopped to think, what would happen if you weren't able to provide one? With thoughtful estate planning, you can make sure that your child's health and education needs are met in the event of your absence due to a temporary incapacity or even death. The estate planning team at Hurley Burrish is here to help.
Fostering deeper relationships, influencing behavior change, developing resilience. You're about to start winning. Here is your host, Christine Bright.
Welcome to Parenting Game. I am so glad you are here. My guest today is Dr. Tom Nebel. He has authored 6 books on leadership, coaching, and church planting. Currently, Tom is partner with Giant Worldwide, a leadership firm that works with organizations to build leaders worth following. Tom, thank you for joining me again. This is pretty cool time. The show is at its 1-year mark, and you had been my guest in the very beginning.
Right.
Actually, one of my first guests, you and Christina. So when this all played out, I said, this is a little bit fitting. But today we're going to be talking about the growth from young father to now being a grandfather, and all that fun stuff in between of the changes you made with your kids, what you wish you would have known back then, and how it's changed the type of grandfather that you want to be. But before we dig into all that, we've been having fun with some candles. So there's a great store here called Budding Butterfly in Sun Prairie, and I was in there smelling some things, and I said, these would be kind of fun to have on my show. Now, I know you are a person who does like candles. You know that I am a person that is a little bit particular about the scents. I don't think I ever asked you, are there certain scents that are just a no-go for
I
you?
have a sense I'm going to be exposed to one or two of those
These are
right
all
now.
good. These are all good. You don't have to sweat the load. Nothing
Can
weird.
I think of anything? No, I really can't think of anything that triggers me.
Okay.
That would not fit in the realm of commonly, decently scents.
Nothing super, super weird. Well, as I have shared, it's sweet, vanilla, not so much, floral, not so much. I like these clean. Okay, so these candles from Budding Butterfly are soy candles, and they're made with essential oils. I told them nothing weird.
And no butterflies have been consumed in the creation of
Yeah,
these.
they don't use real butterflies in the making of them.
All right, I got that.
Okay, you can and we're going to guess. It lists.
I'm
we have
supposed
the
to guess.
list of what's all in this.
Oh, dear.
I don't know.
Well,
this
it would
one
have been
smells
butterflies.
very clean. I want to say like Tide or Gain is in it, but I know
Yeah,
it's not it.
I have a very limited nuance when it comes to
know.
describing
This was a toughie.
the
I like doing.
olfaction.
I
Yeah.
like doing the chocolate better. I was a little bit better on that. Okay, are you picking up anything in here?
I'll give it one more lap, but
Okay.
you can, yeah.
Think flowers. I know there's supposed to be some floral stuff in there.
Yeah, okay.
I'm getting a little minty. What's in here? Okay. Oh, I want to guess any of these. Bay, chamomile, grapefruit, lavender, blood orange, rosemary. Did not catch on that.
Yeah.
And tangerine. Oh, spearmint. I did catch a little bit of mint. So
That's
there's a little
amazing
spearmint.
that you can do that, yeah.
I did get the spearmint on there. So anyway, so if you're looking for something, There you go.
There you go.
So now and this was calming. Are you feeling all calm?
Yes,
Are you
I can
ready?
tell. Yeah, yeah.
You're ready for
as long
this
as we
interview
stay
now?
away from scents from here on, I'm pretty calm. Yeah.
Okay, so you have 2 older boys, and now you are the grandfather of 2 boys. You have learned a lot along the way, and I'm excited for you to share with our viewers what you've learned. The first question I wanted to ask you is, from a young father to now, where has your biggest growth been?
Oh man, yeah.
And we all have a lot of growth, but
Oh, yeah.
that big one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the big pivot where I started to be a better dad was when I stopped trying to live my story through my sons and their perfection. And that's a common thing for men, that you want that kid to be better than you were, and to press for compliance, but not have engagement. And when that finally flipped on me, that was pretty powerful, and it brought me into really true relationship with my sons.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about that a lot, that it's really a pick. You're not, if you either get compliance or you get relationship.
Yeah.
And your approaches are going to determine that.
Right.
So we'll dig a little bit deeper into that. Let's go into, I know, we have talked several times, and you've had 2 major turning points in your parenting journey.
Yeah.
So we'll start with the oldest, and then come to the more recent. What was that first turning point for you in your parenting?
Yeah, when you talk about engagement or compliance or relationship, when I first held my first son, I was determined I was going to be the best dad. And the only problem was the filter that I was running that through was compliance. I wanted him to be some amazing things that I wasn't. So it didn't create the best atmosphere. Over time. It started to play out. And as a matter of fact, my older son, Andrew, we historically grunted and grinded, is that even a word, with each other, to the point that it was common, I would say, over the first 26 years of his life, our relationship, where we would exasperate one another. And the first turning point, and I know you referenced the work that I do now, which is in leadership as a consultant, cultural awareness, and creating environments where everybody wants to work, those kind of things. I was exposed to a visual tool. We use a lot of visual tools. It's called neurolinguistics, where pictures say 1,000 words. And it was an afternoon. It was an October afternoon. Andrew was over at my place, 26 years old, and we were watching a Packers game, and I don't need to get too granular other than to say he was on his phone texting the whole time, and I was getting upset, but I wasn't saying anything, and I was doing a lot of hinting and a lot of things like that, and finally it got to the boiling point where I just blew up on him because of what he was doing. He came right back at me. We were into one more of these grinds. But I had a little moment of aha, and I told you about the tools. We use a lot of visual tools in our leadership development and our emotional intelligence. And there is a tool called the 5 gears. I don't really need to go into that other than to say it's about being present with people and being productive at the same time. If people are overproductive, let's say always texting or always working, they're going to be underpresent. Relationships will suffer. That'll blow up a lot of productivity. I was just learning a tool. It's called the 5 gears. I actually have a copy of it right here because we use a lot of visual tools. But in this moment of blow up, I said to Andrew, I just learned a new tool that I think can help us. Could I teach it to you? He was agreeing. We were both skeptical, but we went through this visual, and by just pointing at it and explaining some things, we came to an agreement about what it would be like when we were present with each other. And by looking at that tool, making an agreement, we really fell in love. It was almost instant. And I will promise you that over the last 8 years, I think since that time, over the last 8 years, we have probably only had 3 moments of stress in our lives. And in each case, we referred to the 5 gears, and in each case, we said we need to back up and apologize. So I'm just telling you, it's maybe a little bit of a long story, but it warrants that, wow, after 26 years, we fell in like with each other to the point that we are just so devoted to each other, and he's really one of the most marvelous people I've ever met. Okay, so that was the first big point.
Yeah, and and that's something that with parents, and I've been doing some posts on this. Are we setting ourselves up to have these tumultuous times with our kids? First one was like terrible twos. We call it the terrible twos.
Yeah.
Are we setting ourselves up? And then we go teens, and you say the word teens, and what comes after that? Ugh, and then you go into adult children, and you're like, well, I'm not so sure. And if we start changing our approach and realizing what's going on during these times, and as parents, we can actually do things to enjoy and like our kids. There was a time you pointed out with me, with my son, we were going through a rough patch, and I was coming to you, and I'm like, I really don't like my kid right now. And you pointed out, every time we're talking, you're telling me what you don't like. And then what do you teach him parenting game? I'm like, but I started doing it. I would always find something positive to speak over to him. And now we're the same way. I mean, we hung out the other night till midnight talking. So it can happen. And you're such a great example.
Well, thank you. And one of the commonalities that you and I have in the work that we do is you use visuals. And the idea with those visuals, it makes things objective, not subjective. It's less about you, me, why don't you ever, but rather we're looking at a different construct, and it just settles us and makes it makes healing happen.
It's much easier to take than somebody telling you. It's like, hey, take a peek at this. It's like something else is telling you what to do.
That's really, it's well said. I like how you said that.
Something else. All right, then you had another point too.
I'm referring specifically to Andrew here because he's been more of the laboratory for me. Now Matthew is equally amazing, and we're in an amazingly congruent relationship. But what was happening with Andrew is that he was married a few years back, and they were about to have their first child. And I was out with a friend of mine on a walk, and we were talking about parenting and how I was looking forward to my grandson being born. And then I said to my friend, and oh, by the way, I'm sitting with my friend right now, and I know you know this incident, okay? But we were out walking, and I made a comment about a horrific thing that had happened in our family life. It just upended everything, and it was just horrible how it had hurt people in our lives. And I made a comment to you, and it's what we call an unsolicited qualifier. Now, little fancy wording there, but it basically means watch out when you yourself deny something as you start a conversation. It'd be like me saying, I'm not saying that I don't like your dress, right? Well, somebody says that to you, you know they're sort of BSing, right? But I've learned myself that when I say unsolicited qualifiers, I negate something even before it's come out, that I got to be suspicious. So we were out walking, and as we're walking, I was thinking about the coming of the grandson. I said, I've really never had a meaningful conversation with Andrew about this specific event in our family life. And I said, I don't think I'm avoiding it. At which point I sort of stunned, and then do you remember what you said to me at that point?
Go ahead, and I don't remember the exact words, but I remember addressing it.
Well, imagine two people walking along having a nice conversation, and then one of them stops, and that was you. You stopped, at which point we were facing one another, and you pointed at me and you said, you're going to talk to him about this before his son comes, so you can break the chain of dysfunction that has been occurring right here. Okay. And you and I have had enough finger pointing times in our relationship and our friendship where we've corrected one another. But I was so trusting of you, and am, that I I received that. I didn't fight you on it. I
Yeah.
said, oh, well, if you think so, I don't really see what's going on here. But if you think so, I'll do that. Now, I can conclude the story, or if you want to
No,
reflect,
go
I want to
ahead.
give you a moment. So I arranged with Andrew. I said, hey, I want to have a conversation about this horror that's happened in our family, and I'd like to have that before your son is born. And he said, okay, well, when? And we arranged, and I drove over to pick him up. Actually, I drove over to his house, and as soon as I got out of the house, as I'm driving over there, I'm like, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to say? There's so many elements to this story. But as I was driving up to his house, I saw he was standing outside like this. He was in a defensive posture,
Yeah.
and what he was communicating is, you're not coming in the house. There's going to be something else. And we started walking, and it was tense. And so I didn't know what to say. I'm just kind of like, well, I don't know if you know how this all came down and how this happened and how whatever. And he stopped, just like you had stopped. And he says, if that's what we're talking about, then I don't even care about that. I want to talk about us. I want to talk about our relationship.
Wow.
And it was like, in the moment, I felt the defensiveness, like, okay, well, like, whatever, and I felt that rising up. It always does rise in any of us when we're put in an accusatory or corrective position. But I had a moment of self-settling, and I listened, and we walked, and we talked, and he started describing our relationship growing up. And guess what it was? Thematically, it was compliance, not engagement. Okay. And I listened to him. You know what I did? Rather than yeah, but, and well, if, and any of that, what I said was, I would have hated to grow up in a family like that.
Yeah.
I would have hated to grow up under a father like that. And when I did that, just the body language that you're showing right now is what he emulated.
Yeah, I was like,
It went down. We sat at a picnic table for a couple hours. We talked through all kinds of stuff about us. And I listened. And I did on occasion, there was some correction, and did you know this, and do you understand that? But it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It wasn't who was right, who was wrong. It was just being human. And then, of course, on the way back, he says, okay, Dad, so tell me about
yeah.
the stuff.
And then
So-
he opened up.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't even know that was lurking out there, that there was another level. But those things had just brought us into such a magnificent
And and
relationship.
you've lived it out. So and I've had those moments too, where my son, part of my story, if anybody hears me speak, one of the stories I tell was a memory Dalton had that was very painful for him.
Okay.
And now that's become part of my story. And what I tell parents, but it's really hard until you actually do it to believe it, that being vulnerable with your kids never undermines your authority.
Yeah.
It changes you into an influencer.
Yeah.
And it's hard though. And it's hard because it's scary, but until a parent does it, then all of a sudden they see, now I'm influencing.
And just a suggestion on that, because using the power of neurolinguistics, you have some beautiful tools. Parents could put in front of their children and point to that and say, I think sometimes I've been this when I wanted to be that. Would you like to talk? Could you talk to me about that? And what it does is it lets something else speak to it, because that's precisely how things started to heal with us. And honestly, over time, I've become a very good apologizer, where historically
much.
not at all. I was a
Yeah.
very good defender.
Absolutely. I believe that's a journey for anybody, is to be a good apologizer. And and that's another thing I tell parents too, is like, where are they going to learn it? If they don't learn it in the home, if you don't model it, where are they going to learn to apologize?
Right.
But yeah, you've had these really powerful moments, with your sons. And one of the biggest things that I want to shine a light on, and for parents to understand, is it's never too late. I mean, you've had these with your adult children. I've had some when he was little, but then I've also had the ones where he's an adult child, and we both can attest to it didn't undermine us. It changed us from this, kind of parent to now influencer, which is ultimately what we all really want. want to be in our kids' life. And now you have great groundwork to be that influencer in your grandkids' life.
Yeah.
So let's lighten the topic a little bit. What is your favorite part about being a grandpa?
Man, yeah, I think the favorite part so far, I have a 21-month-old grandson and a 3-month-old grandson. And the favorite part, hands down, is watching my son and daughter-in-law be amazing parents. And there's something that it sort of codifies, or it welds me, at least with my children, watching them go through similar experiences, and knowing that we never get it right. Andrew, my older grandson is magnificent, and even a couple of weeks ago, Andrew called me. He says, I never understood why people would disengage with their kids when they were in grocery stores, when they were tugging on the pants or yakking. And he says, ugh, I'm no longer judgmental about that. And I says, yeah, we figure it out as time goes on.
Because they're so curious, but it's constant.
And the humanness, I think, it's there's a beauty there. Now, there is this standing joke about why do grandchildren and their grandparents get along so well? Well, it's because they share a common enemy. Okay, and but it's that's the favorite part right now. Now the younger one or the older one, we're being conversant now. He knows how to call me. I get the hugs, and it's all of that. The younger one, they're different people, but he's very, very engaged, and I've been intentional, like writing them letters, giving them intentional gifts, things that will never matter, till they're maybe in their teens.
Yeah.
But so.
Well, share with me the one thing, and I know it's hard to say one, so if you got a couple peppered in there, that's okay, that you would like to share with our viewers that now you wish you would have known at the beginning stages of fatherhood.
Yeah. Well, I want to celebrate something, is that I was very intentional, and I still am very intentional, doing things like father-son trips and individual engagements with the sons, and bringing them to places with me, and those kind of things. So I celebrate that, the engagement, intentionality of that. And those things just never wear out, because we're still continuously, engaged, and do trips and all of that. But in terms of the question about what's the one thing I wish I would have known then, I think I'm going to say that I wish I would have known my own brokenness or my own dysfunction well enough back then to identify that I really was trying to create perfect little humans that I could never be. So when I watch my older son Andrew and his wife Sarah, I don't think they are building their ego and their story on the canvas of their children. I think they're very indifferent to that. I don't think that was the case for me anyway. So that would be the big thing, is be super careful about the opinions of others and how that will shape your own press toward compliance. Yeah, it sounds like I just said something that resonated with you. So you ought to play off of that.
This is what I talk to parents about a lot. And one of the core values of Parenting Game, and that it is, you want to think about character building over reputation.
Yeah.
Character building in yourself and character in your kids.
Yeah.
Because it is hard when we're in those situations and they're having an epic meltdown, or you got that teenager that just sassed you back in public, to immediately want to protect our reputation. And then the decision that we make usually is a punishment that doesn't fit, or anger, and ultimately doesn't do any good. If we start learning ourselves, learning our triggers, learning our own dysfunction, healing from it, you can get to the point where you can just take that moment and be, what is going to build character right now? What can I say? And I teach parents language. I don't deserve that. That's a quick way just to shut some of the, I don't deserve that, and now you can take a moment and we can come back and talk about it.
Yeah.
But and I know I did too. I mean, a lot of choices in how I treated Dalton were because I wanted to look good to everybody out there.
Yeah.
And it's common and it's easy. And this is something I learned about myself. So when I really started focusing and being a parenting coach, I noticed I had a low judgment. Because I'm surveying all the time. What's going on? Now that this is my life's work, and a woman caught my eye, and this put me in check. Son was melting down, and I'm what I am doing is ticking through my brain about how could parents handle that better, how could do it. But I had a look of judgment, on my face, and she caught my eye, and it caught me, and it unsettled me for the day.
Yeah.
And now the first thing I do when I see a parent struggling, I just go say something encouraging.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
Just all of us as parents, we need to not shame each other. Just like go and say, I get you, or this soon shall pass, something. And not be judging it. Because when you hear somebody's stories, when these parents come to me and I see all the underlying stuff that they're dealing with, okay, if the worst thing you're doing is caving and giving your kid the candy bar at the store, you're doing okay. But we parent from that. We parent from our own broken wishes and dreams, and becoming aware and doing that work first. And I just had another guest when he got to that point, noticed his brokenness. And it's like, okay, I got to start doing some work here if I want to be a different parent.
Yeah.
Our time goes by so fast when I have you on. Just give us a quick wrap up of what do you like about being a parent to adult kids? We got about 30 seconds, and then I'm going to have you tell us your website where they can go to too.
Engagement comes from my son's side all the time. And I celebrate that because every day I get a call, every day I get a laugh, every day I get something, but every week I'm being reached out to just for some context and give me some thoughts. And you never stop being a dad, you never stop being a parent, but you really do grow into being co-collaborators and colleagues, and that's really what I celebrate.
And you do great work with leadership, which also some of it translates, over into families as well. If somebody is looking to get a hold of you, what's the website?
Well, the website, which pivots into the other work that I do through this construct called Giant Worldwide, but my website would be leadersrising.com.
And then if they want to email you, how can they email you?
Well, it's tom.nebel@giantworldwide.com, and I know we're showing that on the screen. But I work across the spectrum of organizations from the military down to banking or technology, and what we do is we get their teams functioning as real adults that want to work together.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Especially thank you for your vulnerability. I know some of those stories are hard to tell, so I appreciate that. And thank you for tuning in to The Parenting Game.
We're all familiar with the 3 whats: what it is, what it can do for me, and what does it cost. Tyler Rickenaugh, Country Financial, can help you find the answers with insurance coverage to help protect what's most important to you, all at a price you can afford. So while you're juggling work and kids while trying to keep an eye on your financial future, Tyler Rickenaugh, Country Financial, will make sure they are the first ones there when you need them most. The kids are back to school, and your schedule is busier than ever. From daycare pickup, doctor's appointments, sports, and college tuition, a parent's signature is a powerful thing. Have you ever stopped to think, what would happen if you weren't able to provide one? With thoughtful estate planning, you can make sure that your child's health and education needs are met in the event of your absence due to a temporary incapacity or even death. The estate planning team at Hurley Burrish is here to help.
Thank you for watching The Parenting Game. All episodes of The Parenting Game are available on demand at sunprairiemediacenter.com.